The Ethics of Credit Rating Agency Incentives by Molly Pacer for Creighton University's MBA Business Ethics and Society class. Taking a look back at recent history, we can note a number of financial disasters that have occurred in various industries, such as Enron, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and the recent financial crisis, just to name a few. There are many reasons why these scandals were able to occur, but this presentation focuses on the role of the credit rating agencies and their misaligned incentives. First of all, there are two different types of rating agencies. One type is called a Nationally Recognized Statistical Ratings Organization, or NRSRO. This rating agency is certified by the SEC to issue ratings that can be used by financial institutions for regulatory or contractual purposes. The big three rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch Ratings, are all examples of NRSROs. The second type of rating agency is a non-certified agency. These are independent agencies that issue ratings for valuation purposes. Weiss Ratings and Rapid Ratings are examples of non-certified credit rating agencies. There are also different types of compensation structures that each agency can have regardless of type. An issuer pay compensation structure is one where the agency gets paid by the bond issuers which they rate. An investor pay structure is when the agency gets paid by the investors who use their ratings for valuation purposes. Let's take a look at the big three rating agencies: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. All were founded before the Great Depression. All have been NRSROs since 1975, when the first designation was issued, and all have issuer pay compensation structures. Compare them to Egan-Jones Ratings Company. Unlike the big three, Egan-Jones was founded in 1995, is privately owned, and has less than 50 employees. From 1995 until 2007, it was a non-certified rating agency that catered only to investors for valuation purposes. In 2007, it received the NRSRO designation, which made it both a valuation and a contractual rating agency. Despite this designation, Egan-Jones maintains an investor pay compensation structure, which it's had since it was founded. Does the difference in compensation structure make a difference in the rater's performance? Let's take an in-depth look at how the different agencies performed during specific financial disasters in recent history. We'll compare the issuer pay structure with the investor pay structure, represented by the agencies just mentioned. If the compensation structure has no impact on rating agency performance, then we can expect Egan-Jones to give similar ratings to the big three before each event. Let's see how they stack up. The first example we'll turn to is Enron. Here's a brief timeline of Enron's history. Our main focus is during the period of 2001 to 2002. Beginning in May of 2001, prices for natural gas began to soar in California. In August of 2001, CEO Jeff Skilling resigned for personal reasons. In October, Enron disclosed a $638 million loss in its third quarter, prompting the SEC to open a formal investigation on Enron's accounting records. By December 4th, Enron had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Here we can see that on October 23, 2001, all three agencies had Enron rated at investment grade status. Egan-Jones was the first to downgrade to below investment grade status on October 24th. It continued to downgrade the company several times before Moody's or S&P made any grade changes. It wasn't until November 28th that S&P or Moody's downgraded Enron to below investment grade status. As you can see, there is a clear difference in how Egan-Jones rated Enron from the major agencies. Egan-Jones ratings gave a more accurate representation of Enron's financial situation at the time, and were also much timelier. Our second comparison case is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Here's a brief timeline of the two. Our focus is on the time from 2001 to 2003, when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac first began to understate the riskiness of the mortgage-backed securities held on their books. This led to a formal investigation in 2004 of Fannie Mae's financial statements. Fannie eventually ended up restating $9 billion in earnings, and CEO Franklin Raines resigned from his post. Now let's compare the raters' performance. From 2000 to 2003, the highest rating Egan-Jones ever gave Fannie or Freddie was AA. Egan-Jones first downgraded both Fannie and Freddie on February 20, 2002 to A+, with the credit watch negative. Beginning in March, it continued to downgrade Freddie Mac further to A. Moody's, S&P, and Fitch all maintained AAA ratings on each agency over this entire period. Once again, we can see a clear difference in Egan-Jones ratings versus the Big Three, with Egan-Jones providing timelier and more accurate ratings than the major agencies. There are many other cases where this same scenario played out. These comparisons lead us to ask the question, why do these differences in ratings exist between the agencies? It's true that in all of the cases we looked at, Egan-Jones didn't hold the NRSRO designation during the period of study. Could the designation be causing the differences? We can turn to a 2011 study conducted by Valentina Cornaggia and Cornaggia. These researchers tried to find a difference in Egan-Jones's ratings performance from when it was a non-certified agency versus when it was an NRSRO. The results of the study found that, in fact, Egan-Jones rating behavior did not materially change once it attained NRSRO status, shown here in this graph. Here's a chart from the same study that shows the monthly average differences between Moody's and Egan-Jones credit ratings over time. From 2000 to 2003, the difference between the two agencies is elevated. The difference is also pronounced during the financial crisis of 2007 to 2009, which is after Egan-Jones attained its NRSRO designation. We can now turn to Strobel and Zia, who conducted a study in 2011 on the impact that compensation structure has when a potential conflict of interest with the issuer pay model is most severe. In particular, the authors study raters' behavior in the context of the following conflicts of interest: issuers who have more short-term debt and who will therefore need more ratings in the future, rating agencies who have a lower revenue share of the issuer's business and therefore has a chance to gain more business in the future, and issuers that have a new CEO or CFO are more likely to change the firm's operational or financial strategy and may be more inclined to change the rating agencies. This study compared Egan-Jones ratings with Standard & Poor's. Both were NRSROs with different pay structures. The authors found that, in fact, the more severe the conflict of interest, the more likely Standard & Poor's was to give an issuer a favorable rating. The results were significant in all three scenarios. These findings show us that a rating agency's compensation structure does in fact affect its ratings performance. In particular, agencies that have investor pay structures provide timelier and more accurate ratings than agencies with issuer pay structures. This may explain why there was such a misalignment between bond ratings and bond quality during the recent financial crisis. In fact, the Big Three rating agencies saw their profits skyrocket in the years preceding the crisis. So what should be done to solve this problem? One possibility is to change the incentive structure of the big three rating agencies to an investor pay model. This may result in timelier, more accurate ratings from the big three agencies, similar to the performance that Egan-Jones has exhibited for years. Until this change occurs, all we can do is continue to track the performance of all these agencies over time to see if our hypothesis is ever proven wrong.